fifth and final congruence postulate has to do with right triangles only. So before we get into it, let's remind ourselves of the parts of a right triangle. So a right triangle has a right angle, and then always across from the right angle, we have the hypotenuse. Okay, so again, that is always across from the right angle. Is the hypotenuse. It's the longest side. Okay, the two sides that make the right angle, so from the right angle, here and here, those are called the legs. This is a leg, and this is a leg. So the ones that surround the right angle, those are legs, and across from the right angle is the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse leg congruence theorem is just what it sounds like. You need a hypotenuse to be congruent. You need the legs to be congruent to have hypotenuse leg theorem. So let's fill in the blanks. If the hypotenuse and a leg of a right triangle, if the hypotenuse and a leg of a right triangle are congruent to a hypotenuse or to the hypotenuse and a leg of a second right triangle, then the two triangles are congruent. Okay, so let's look at this picture. We're going to add the important information in. So we need the hypotenuse to be congruent. So from looking at this right triangle, this would be the hypotenuse. So let's give it a mark. Okay, and if I look at this right angle, this would be the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse have to be the same. And then one of the legs has to be the same. So I'm just going to go with this one right here. That's vertical. That leg needs to be the same as this leg. Okay, so what you'll see is visually it looks like angle side side, which is not what we want to put on our paper. So if it's a right triangle and you see angle side side, check to make sure that it's hypotenuse leg. So this would be the hypotenuse are the same and the legs are the same. This does not apply to any other triangles other than a right triangle. Okay, and we're just going to leave this blank because we really just talked about it here. So let's do an example. So this one says, is it possible to show that the two triangles are congruent by hypotenuse leg? If so, which two triangles are congruent? So we have ABC right here. We have that this side is congruent to this side. And down here we have that this angle is congruent to this angle. Okay, so they want to know if we can prove it by hypotenuse leg. What kind of triangle do you have to have in order to have hypotenuse leg? Has to be a right triangle. Are these right triangles? No. So is it possible? No. Not by hypotenuse leg. They must be right triangles. Okay, the next one. Is it possible to show that the two triangles are congruent by hypotenuse leg? If so, which two triangles are congruent? So we have G, H, and this letter did not come up. So we're going to have GHI. And over here on this right angle, let's put an F. Okay, so I noticed that these two are right triangles, so it is possible for us to do this, but we need to make sure we actually have the hypotenuse are the same and the legs are the same. So this is a shared side, so let's mark it. And that shared side that I just marked, would that represent a hypotenuse or a leg? A hypotenuse. So our hypotenuse in both are the same. So now we need to check to see if we have a leg. So if I look at the leg, I have that this is congruent to this, and that is a leg. So because I have a hypotenuse, a leg, and a right angle, these are congruent by hypotenuse leg. Which triangles are congruent? Well, we need to name them. So let's name this one I, G, H, I, G, H. Triangle IGH is congruent to I, G, H would be congruent to G, I, F. Okay, when can we add markings to the diagram? So remember, we can add shared sides. We can add vertical angles. And we learned a new one today or yesterday, alternate interior angles when you have parallel sides. Shared sides, vertical angles, and alternate interior angles.